Greetings, programmers! Busted Thumbs back again. Episode number 3 of our Music Player Studio, and we're still drawing our piano. When I left off in our last broadcast, we had a little bit of a mishap with our piano. The drawing itself was off just a little bit, and it was just because we made a few little math mistakes. I was kind of looking at what could possibly be wrong after the last one, and I realized I made one pretty fundamental error here. This thing that we were working on right here that said our draw key left, I just simply put it in the wrong spot. And you probably noticed this while I was doing it, and that's great because I have some smart people that watch these videos and write to me from time to time. Instead of being here in that repeat slot, it was supposed to be here where we set the draw key left variable. And that would certainly help us out a little bit. I was also thinking about the math here. Since the black key width is half of the white key width, the offset that we should be doing instead of a third is a quarter, because we only want it to show up. So that half of that black key width is in one half of one white key and one half of the other. So if it's already half the size of one of those keys, in order to be on half, this needs to be 0.25. And we could even do it so that we did it based on the actual width of the black key. But I think it's okay if we take a look at the math there and do the math right here. So that's what that needs to be. The other one we've got is that there are 52 white keys on a piano. There are not 55. And that was a mistake here too. So that number is supposed to be 52. And right now this one should actually be 51. Though we have to clean this up later because there's some keys on a piano that don't have black keys in between them. Doing all of that, I hope, is going to make this look a little bit better. So let's go ahead and run this guy and make it bigger. And yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does make it look better, but you can see that I'm still off a little bit here. These are the black keys in here. They're not black yet. We'll fix that in a minute. And I think the fundamental mistake I've done here is the very first one needs to shift over by 3/4, not just 1/4. So that's I think what we're seeing right there. So let's go ahead and stop that. Let's go back. Clearing it out is as simple as doing that instead of drawing the piano. Let's go ahead and fix this little math up here. The very first one should actually be over 3/4. Go ahead and play again. And that's more like what I wanted it to look like. So I'll blow this up for you to see a little bit better. It still looks a little funny here, right? Because these it's got the line going through it and they're not black keys. Well, we'll fix that next and you'll be able to see this a little bit better. Let's go ahead and stop. I'll clear this off. This is just to make it look a little better. So filling in the black keys, Scratch doesn't have a nice way of just like drawing a filled rectangle. We're going to have to do that ourselves. And I think the way to do that is to come back in here to our draw piano key and edit it and just add one more parameter inside there. And that's a Boolean one. And what does Boolean mean? Boolean means true or false. And we're going to call this one filled. So basically, if that's true, then it's a black key, and if it's false, then it's a white key, which is really what we've drawn here, is a bunch of white keys. Okay, and it looks like that symbol there because it's supposed to be true or false only, and that's what all these operators that do true and false look like. All right, so now we've got these empty parameters here. These were our white keys, and we don't actually have, inside of Scratch, there isn't a true and a false that we can just pop in. So when I do this, what I tend to do is I just pop this guy in there. And we don't want to fill these white ones, and I just simply say 1 equals 0, which we know is false. And inside here, I can set 1 equals to 1. Like that. And that is true. So that's false and that's true, and it's pretty easy to tell that those things are the case. And so when it comes in here, it's going to say the true or false for that. Okay, so basically we need to draw things a little bit differently if we are in the case of a filled one versus a non-filled key. And when we did the non-filled key, basically what we did is we just simply drew the box we drew right around it. But in the case of a filled key, there's a few ways to do this, but since Scratch has kind of a rounded pen, I think the easiest way is to stick with a pen size of 1 and just simply draw vertical lines every time we need to. Okay, so that means right here, once we set the pen down, we're actually going to do this logic a little differently. So let's go ahead and create an if-then else here. And simply say if it's filled, we're going to do it one way, and if it's not filled, we're going to do it another. So this is the not filled way that we've already done. Let's do the filled way. The filled way says that we're going to have to repeat a few times. And the number of times we're going to have to repeat is the width number of times. And so let's go ahead and drag that down there. We're up in the top left corner again. In order to do this, we're going to need an offset though, which means we need a variable. So for this sprite only, I'm going to create a little variable, and I'm just going to call it the draw filled key x offset. Okay. Can have as many of these variables as we want to, and it's for the sprite only, so it shouldn't affect anybody else. So let's go ahead and set that. We're going to set it originally to 0, and then we're going to repeat for the width here. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line. So we're going to need to put the pen down. Then we're going to need to change the y. And again, it's going to be just like this one. So we're going down, so we need a negative value. We're going to change it by -1 times the height. Only this time, that's all we're going to do. That's the only thing we're going to draw. So we're going to put the pen back up. And then we're going to bring the y back up. Change y by the height. And we're just simply going to move over. You know what? Now that I think about it, I don't need this. I don't need this variable. Usually I think about doing this with the variable, but I don't need this variable. I'll show you why. Let's just go ahead and let's delete that variable if we don't need it. Because all we're really going to do is we're going to change y by 1, or x by 1. And x is really the variable in this case. So let's go ahead and change x by 1. And what this is going to do, it's going to draw that vertical line down, it's going to move itself back up and move over 1, and it's going to do that width number of times, so it should fill it all in for us. Okay, so let's see, I think pen up, pen down. At the very end we want to make sure the pen is up, which it should be, because it'll repeat that every single time it will get to pen up. Alright, so let's go see what this does. We hit play. Look at that. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Oh, so this is a little funny. It looks like my y's are going down. We're not going up as high as we wanted to. It's going over like we wanted it to, but the y positions themselves are moving down. So why is that? It's because we're using yeah, it's because we're using a negative number here and using a minus. So that's wrong. Our math again, just copying the wrong thing over. It wasn't really the math, it was me copying the wrong one over. It should be -1 times height, not -1 minus height. Okay, so let's try that again. Let's go ahead and to make sure that we get this right, let's clear it out. And then let's go ahead and draw our piano. It looks a little better. Right there. It does seem to be that we're not quite centered on those black keys. It seems to me like the math would make that work, but let me just nudge it 1, because it may be just the way that it's drawn. So let me go ahead and to draw key left, I could just add 1 here, I suppose. This is kind of a fudge factor for now. Oops, not on that one. That one was actually fine. And you know, I don't even have to really add. I can always do that right here. Might make that minus 239. That's the way to add 1. Actually, I can just put that, just to make this easier for me so I don't have to switch back and forth. There we go. All right. Oh, you know what? It's getting more offset as it goes. That looks to me like the problem. See, that one's right. Seems just right. And these are starting to go off a little bit to the point where they get shifted too far to the right. And they kind of come back again. It's kind of funny how that works. But that's okay. I'll clean that up a little bit later. It's doing about the right thing. The problem that we have here, of course, is that not every piano key needs to be drawn. We really need to be skipping a few of these piano keys, right? So the piano, if you're familiar with the piano, it starts on A. This key is A, and this key is B, and this key is C. And between A and B there is a black key, and between B and C there is a black key, but well, I mean, no, I'm sorry. Between A and B there is a black key, and between B and C there is no black key. Between C and D there is. So we should actually be skipping some of these black keys, which means down here our repeat is perfectly fine, but we should actually only be drawing this in certain conditions. So let's think about the math behind that. And every time we're still going to want to change whether or not we go to the right a little bit further, but we want to make sure that we're not drawing on some of the keys, and it's going to have to do with our mod operator again, which we've used before in some of these, but not in this project. The mod operator says if something is divisible by something else, then the mod of it is going to be 0, right? So if 2 mod 2 is always 0, 3 mod 3 is always 0, 6 mod 3 is always 0 because they're evenly divisible. So basically we need to keep track of what key it is that we're on, what index, what key number we're on. So let's create a little variable here, and this one's going to be draw key number. And this is actually the way Scratch does it too. If you look inside of their sounds, they have a way of playing a note. So I'll just drop this in and get rid of it. But if you select this, it actually tells you which note it is you're pointing at. So they've got a little keyboard in here too, and they've got a number for each one of the keys. We're going to kind of do that here too. Only in this case, we're just kind of we're doing the white keys, because that's really what draw key left is keeping track of, is how many white keys over we are. So the first white key is A, and the second white key is B. And we don't want to draw on B. So that means we want to skip this if mod 2 happens to be 0. If the key number that we're on, mod 2 is equal to 0. So first let's set the key number. So make sure we're set originally to 0, which is fine. So that A is the 0th and B is the 1th in this case. So now if basically what we're going to say is if not equal to this mod, and here we're going to pop in the draw key number. If the draw key number mod 1 is not equal to 0, in those cases we don't want to draw. So let's go ahead and hit play. Oh, I didn't, you know what? Yeah, of course, if you're going to add the variable in, you're going to have to change it too. Change the draw key number by 1. So let's try again. And that should be drawing. Okay, so let's do it the other way first. If the draw key number mod 1 oh, sorry. Yeah, so mod isn't exactly right. You want it to be mod the number of keys in an octave. That's what you want. So you want the draw key number mod the number of keys in an octave, which is 7, is not equal to 2. Is not equal to 1 in this case because we're counting from 0. Sorry. Math is fun. Let's try that. There we go. So that's correct. That's gotten rid of all the ones at B. We also want to get rid of all the ones that are at E to F. So A, B, C, D. I'll make this bigger so you can see what I'm doing. A, B, C, D, E, F. So at the end of F and to G, we also don't want those to show up. No, C, D, E. Oh no, it's actually right here. It's after E that we don't want them to show up, between E and F. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We also want it not to show up when that mod is equal to 4. So let's go ahead and put AND. We're going to do the exact same thing here. We want one here. We want one here. We want to put that all in there. And in this case, we want this to be 4. Stop, hit play, and now we've got a keyboard. So it should look like a piano to you. Open that up a little bit more. There you go. So now at C and at E, in each of these cases, we don't have a black key showing up. Looks pretty good? Good. All right, thank you. We now got a piano drawn on here. We'll do a little bit more, I think, maybe with the music or maybe with the way we fill in how the piano works when it's played as we get into our next one. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Bye.